oli muutama mies täällä. Se otti niin verran.
Now that the Viet Cong are switching their main attacks from the country to the towns and the cities, the Allies, particularly the Americans, are becoming desperately frustrated at their failure to identify the unknown enemy within. Their failure to be able to tell which people in the towns and the cities are South Vietnamese and which are the Viet Cong. And nowadays you increasingly hear them asking, need we have got ourselves into this impossible position? Well, if you look to a relevant parallel with Vietnam, the answer seems to be no. In the first 3 years of the British campaign in Malaya, British intelligence not only identified, but card-indexed 80% of the communists and their collaborators. In Vietnam, there are many well-qualified observers who feel that the Allies are going to pay very dearly for failing to do this here by not being able to regain the initiative they lost when the Viet Cong launched their Tet Offensive.
We're now about 3 miles from the northern perimeter of Tan Son Nhut Airport, General Westmoreland's headquarters. We're with the 6th Battalion of the Vietnamese Airborne Division, and they've contacted about 2 platoons of Viet Cong, probably North Vietnamese soldiers. Stuck now in a very grim battle for possession of the VC's bunkers, about possibly half a mile from where we are now, and we're making about 20 yards progress in an hour. It's that sort of progress.
As always in these engagements, the South Vietnamese troops are heavily outgunned. On the ground, the enemy's firepower is much the superior. All regular North Vietnamese troops and Viet Cong guerrilla units now seem to be equipped with brand new Chinese and Russian weapons. The most deadly of them all is their newest rocket-propelled gun, the RPG. Its rocket, the Americans have found to their horror, can cut through 13 inches of steel. In this battle, the enemy are using the RPGs as anti-personnel weapons. The enemy is not always in front. In this bunker, there might be Viet Cong hiding. For 10 hours, the battalion's American advisor captain has been requesting a napalm strike. His request is turned down again. He gets gunships. On each run-in, they meet very heavy ground fire from the positions they're attacking. Most of the gunship pilots are 19 and 20. So young, the American advisor remarked, they don't even shave yet.
And as everybody here says, these pilots who fly these gunships, these are the real heroes of this war. It's a miracle that not one of them has been shot down so far. Now, this is the first wave of the airstrike. They're using only high explosives. If when the 6th Battalion goes in, root them out, and the Viet Cong are still trying to get in their trenches, they'll then strike again with napalm.
Headquarters still says no to napalm. Instead, Sky Raiders dive down to drop 250-pounders.
Now the American advisor captain is angry. For an hour he's been requesting medevac helicopters to take out the wounded. They haven't come. The wounded are dying.
Tell him I got 3 more of my men died. I still can use a medevac though.
What happens next is unusual. The gunship breaks every rule in its ops book and puts down to take out the wounded. The gunships are not equipped to save lives, but this time they will. 9 of the wounded have already died because there were no medevacs available to lift them out. These are the lucky ones. Usually the medevacs arrive before the wounded have been bandaged. The American advisor captain says, "It's been a bad day."
It is Catholic. Besides the stuff, I hate to see clown church. Sorry back there.
Did it go up there and start up?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
obedience, man.
Put a skylight.
Everybody.
Lucky brother.
You did everything you could.
You're on TV, smile.
You don't can the camera, fella.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right here, yeah.
Right now they want to come back to their family and get some food.
They want to go to district?
Yes, sir.
Oh, these are refugees.
Yes,
These
sir.
are people that want to go. They heard you talk this morning?
Yes, sir. And they want to
Okay.
come back, their family right now and get some food, rice, and moving back to the district.
Got on 30 India, got on 28, Roger. This is 30 India. Roger here.
Sporadic shooting going on, but the VC gunmen are on the run. But you'll have seen exactly how the Viet Cong gunmen sometimes work. They'd been in this church for hours watching the American soldiers, and they waited until the civilians came back to the church to collect their belongings. And it was while the civilians came back that the Viet Cong opened fire over their heads at the Americans.
Hey, Pop, what you got here?
This is Refugee. Get stabilization. Okay, just saying I want you.
Ngồi đây, ngồi đây. Ba tao ngồi đây nè. À, đâu đi tụi anh.
A batch of recruits and draftees arrives at Quang Tri Training Center. Before the Viet Cong's Tet Offensive, the intake at this main training center was 700 a day. Now the number has more than doubled to 1,500 a day. On average, and even allowing for combat losses, you could say that the South Vietnamese army is at present growing by one every minute of every day. The build-up is aimed at putting another 125,000 men into the battlefields by June. So it is to be continued at this pace until then. Because of the size and urgency of the call-up, the training period has been cut from 12 to 9 weeks. Even the most optimistic training officers admit this is not long enough. In every army, training is divided into two broad categories: what you need to know and what's nice to know. In this army, they have time for only the first. What they need to know most of all is how to kill the enemy. Despite the limitations that time imposes, the South Vietnamese are generally much better trained than the Viet Cong and the NVA. But when the real battles take place, the South Vietnamese are always outgunned. The quality of their weapons is much inferior to the enemy's. There is particularly a desperate shortage of automatic weapons. This is as real as training can be made, and yet it's so inadequate a warning of what they will have to face. For the Viet Cong and the NVA are now using anti-tank and rocket-propelled guns as anti-personnel weapons, and they can slice through 13 inches of steel. One thing that South Vietnamese soldiers have plenty of is food. For some volunteers, it's a good reason for joining up. The motives of some others are more doubtful. Some are already Viet Cong sympathizers and supporters. The army usually only discovers them when it's too late, when they've deserted. In one South Vietnamese unit recently, the desertion rate was as high as 55%. An American advisor at this camp said to me, "We train a lot of them for Hanoi." An airstrike with napalm. The target is an enemy base camp. Close by me, a Negro voice says, "G-man, they're being fried alive." They are a battalion of North Vietnamese regulars. For 3 hours, they've been hit hard from the ground and the air, but still they're fighting. This will be the second time in 3 hours that the Allies have attempted to overrun the NVA positions. The first attempt was beaten back. That was a napalm strike. There'll be 1 or 2 more in, and then the APCs and the tanks and the infantry are going in. And as far as we know, the VC are still there. They've sat there and taken everything that the planes can throw at them. For a few seconds before the main assault begins, the battlefield is almost silent. On both sides, many men are afraid. The order is given. The attack is led by the Patton tanks of the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. The air is filled with the din of battle. It is to stay like this for 3 more hours. Under the weight of armor and men, the ground is trembling. The NVA bunkers are shielded by trees, so a flamethrower is brought into action to burn them down. Above the battle, in a tiny, flimsy, single-engine plane, the forward air controller is deliberately trying to draw enemy fire. He attracts almost none, so he signals that it's probably safe for the infantry to go in. Almost every one of the first 15 infantrymen to go in is cut down. But now the enemy's fire seems to be coming only from 1 or 2 isolated bunkers.
When they are located, the flamethrower is brought into action again. This time, all the trees around the bunkers are burnt to the ground. The Allies find a grisly trophy. On the stretcher is what remains of an NVA soldier's body. It was burned to a cinder by napalm.
Now you can see the strength of the North Vietnamese army. They've taken all that and they're still there, dug in their very deep bunker trenches. And the real job of flushing them out is going to have to be done now by the infantrymen like those in front of us.
To the end, the fighting is bitter. 15 South Vietnamese were killed in this battle. The NVA lost 142.
Compared to the other 500,000 refugees, the Chu's family is well off. It still has a roof over its head, even if it is a piece of tin and a stretched out parachute. Because this has always been the family home, a very prosperous one until the Viet Cong turned it into a battlefield, the Chus prefer to stay and live in the ruins. The Chu's day begins at 7:30 when they roll up their beds. There are 4 children. The youngest is Trang, she is 1. Tring is 3, her name means virgin. Trung is the only boy, he's 5. His name means something good. And Truc is 7. For 2 years she's been going to school, but now the military have taken it over, so she has to stay at home too. Mr. Chu's, the head of the family, is 27. In this tiny space, he has also to accommodate his mother and father. The family's prosperity has disappeared, but even in this comparative squalor, they keep themselves clean and healthy. Tring and Trang seem happy to follow their parents' example. The business of cleaning their teeth at least gives them something to do. For most of the day, they just sit. Apart from the daily chores, there is nothing to relieve their boredom. Though there's hardly meat on the skinny duckling, the Chus eat well. Any one of the other 500,000 refugees would perhaps give a lot for just a crumb from this table on the floor. Yet, in a way, the Chus are worse off than most of the other refugees because they have known the good life. They became prosperous, even rich, through their own efforts. Now they have nothing but one good meal a day. Cavalry's advance to the old Special Forces camp was made under the covering support of a heavy artillery barrage of cavalry field guns on nearby hilltops. For a while, some of the supporting shells were exploding only yards in front of the advancing infantrymen. Well, supported by very heavy artillery, B Company are now moving in on what's called a probe to the Long Bay Special Forces camp, which is now believed to be occupied by about a battalion North Vietnamese army. The colonel in charge of the 1st Air Cav has said he doesn't want to lose one man's life on this assault on this hill, so this is only a probe. We have to see what happens. As usual, what we did have was the unexpected. There was almost no resistance. It was soon apparent that the North Vietnamese Army Battalion, which 3 times before repulsed the cavalry's attempt to retake the hill, had withdrawn during the night to the safety of the frontier mountain of neutralist Laos. The last few enemy defenders were soon outgunned and quickly killed. The occupying North Vietnamese force had made good use of what was left of the Special Forces bunkers, but the rest of the camp had been completely destroyed by Allied bombs, which were dropped nearly every day while the NVA were in residence here. Every bunker and foxhole was thoroughly investigated for booby traps and any NVA soldiers still alive and hiding. The search produced 7 prisoners. By relieving the pressure around Khe Sanh and by securing all of the hilltops around here, and now by finally retaking the Special Forces camp at Long Bay, the 1st Air Cavalry have regained the initiative that the Allies began losing on the 7th of February when this camp here was overrun. From landing zone Snapper, the 1st Air Cavalry's most forward fire and support base, you can look out to Khe Sanh, then sweep right across the enemy's main infiltration route through the valley of Highway 9 to the mountains of Laos, less than 4 miles away. The 1st Air Cavalry succeeded in breaking up the enemy's main force units around Khe Sanh, a job the Marines couldn't do because they are superbly maneuverable. In this rugged terrain, the Allies could not compete in a foot-slogging war with the North Vietnamese without the massive support of a vast fleet of helicopters, which only the 1st Air Cavalry as an individual main force possesses. Within minutes of sighting an enemy force, a cavalry unit can be dropped around it to do battle. And every day, too, the field guns are moved to different positions to minimize the enemy's chances of being able to zero in on them and knock them out. Within easy range of the enemy's big guns, a group of cavalrymen take time off to celebrate Mass with a visiting bishop. For a few minutes, the war seems far away. But when they've prayed for peace, they continue with the business of preparing to fight and kill. In the 1st Air Cavalry, the old theory of come easy, go easy really holds good. Because supplies are so readily available, the gunners think nothing of pouring several hundred rounds of expensive 105mm shells into a position held only by one enemy armed with a rifle. But it's not all outgoing. Every day, Snapper gets shelled by the enemy from Laos. Because of their maneuverability, the 1st Air Cavalry are the best equipped to take on this job of dispersing the enemy main forces and breaking them up into smaller units. But even the 1st Air Cav have a limitation. And that limitation is the mountain just behind me there, about 5 kilometers away. That's the border with Laos. And once the NVA take refuge behind there, strictly technically and legally, the 1st Air Cav can't send in ground patrols or they can't bombard the place. So once the enemy have made that mountain, they're home and dry.